Thanks for coming on, Ryan.
Morning. Sorry I'm a bit
Good
late.
morning.
I had
Yeah,
to
no,
clean
no
up, brush
problem.
my teeth, put some cologne on, so I both look good and smell good for your audience, Jessica.
Well, thank you very much. Small audience, but I've been really looking forward to having you on because, I've had experiences with AI in the past where I've, encountered like this kind of, this energy of this entity that is AI. And that's how I embarked on the whole journey of starting to research about, where the tech was at, and what can we expect from it moving into the future. And then I came across your work, and you really go in detail about everything with the Internet of, I think it's Internet of Things, Internet of People, and Internet of Everything.
Hmm.
And that brought everything together, right? Because I had a lot of like pieces, experiences that I had, and then really getting like just what's out there, where's the tech at? And then delving into the nanotech and stuff like that, with Charles Lieber, who is kind of heading that in the US and who sold a lot off to China. And so yeah, I'm bringing you on just to share with the audience. I know I have people who do check in to see what's going on. I focus on tech and I focus on esoteric stuff. So we can talk anything from there to there, A to B on
Perfect
that.
blend.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe you could just start by explaining, like, I think a lot of people don't really even know the basics of, what the Internet of, the Internet of Things, the Internet of People, and the Internet of Everything is kind of wrapped up in a nutshell, because I know you can go in depth and you do have lectures out there that people can tap into, ryanvelli.com, if anyone's interested in going in depth, but just kind of a general overview for our audience for the purpose of today.
Right. And that's what I'll focus on is just that a lot of what I say is backed up, but like 95% of what I'm talking about is backed up by the IEEE evidence, the WEF, Davos, government documentation, patents, and all this information. So a lot of people feel more comfortable hoping that what I'm talking about is speculation or opinion, but it's not. The part that is opinion and speculation is the connection between the esoteric and the digital, which is where I plug it in together, because you can't look at geopolitics or the world as a whole without connecting these two things. So it's actually pivotal that you cover both of these areas. And I just want to mention, folks, my eyes, my optic nerves are very sore. So I don't know if it's nanobots chewing on my optic nerve. So if I close my eyes, that's why, and I'll figure it out later. But so in terms of what's going on technically, as we've seen through the 90s, the boom of the internet and the micro miniaturization of technology, and this was all going somewhere. It was all a plan. Now, my personal history, I've talked about in many other interviews, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but I'm ex-military, I'm a teacher, I'm from business, I have tons of experience, and for whatever reason, God has seen fit to put me in places and have me rub shoulders with people who could advance this knowledge base. And my mission is to bring it to people and to hope that we could do something to take it off course, because I know where it's going. I've been talking about the robot rollout and the AI rollout and all of this stuff since 2009, since I was shown many pieces of the puzzle and of the plan. So it's not my super genius that has figured this out. It's that I saw the answers on the test before I took it. So I've been trying to warn people and inform people about these realities, pretty much to no avail, maybe my own destruction at best. So what's happening is first they rolled out the internet, then they rolled out and have proposed what's called the Internet of Things, which includes all the gadgetry. So they tried to convince you that having your toaster and your car and your fridge and your door locks plugged into the internet was a good thing, when in reality, it's not. Now, just to mention that IPv4 was inherently insecure. IPv6 is far more secure, but it comes with basically a total control catch, where once you actually go full throttle IPv6, they're going to enforce the MAC address component of IPv6, so there's no more anonymity online. This is all
Can
part of
we,
the.
sorry, Ryan, can I interrupt you? Just for the layman's, IPv6 you might have to tone down your vocabulary for a lot of people that don't know because you're a specialist in the tech.
Yeah.
Just
So this is
yeah.
the protocol or language. Anytime, stop me if there's something that's not crystal clear, because again, as you say, this is second nature to me, so it's not a problem. But if there's something that people are struggling with understanding, just ask me. So yes, it's the protocol or language that's used in the background for computers to communicate. So there is an IP address, which in V4 can be anonymous and not tracked down to an individual item. Then there's another layer of address called a MAC address, which is a physical hard-coded address on your device. Now, with Bluetooth and a lot of this interbody nanotech, they have, I think, Bluetooth 5, which allows them to do randomized MAC addresses. But before that, the MAC address was unique to your device. And the first part was the OUI, which would identify the vendor that's putting out the device. And then the second half was a serial number. So in IPv6, they have the capacity to merge those two components. So you have something that identifies your machine, the serial number of the machine, and the address that you're using to connect to the internet. And now we've seen in Australia, they've passed the Internet ID law, which is coming everywhere, including the United States. And they want to get rid of anonymity on the internet because they want to connect it to your social credit score and penalize you for wrong think, just like your worst sci-fi nightmare. So once they got through the Internet of Things, they went into the Internet of Everything. Then they said, well, why not plug in people and thoughts and robots and animals and everything? And they said, okay, well, there's certain technological things that we need. One of those things was AI, and the other was quantum computing, but also blockchain and quantum encryption. So all of these things they've had behind the scenes for decades, and people are being told that some doofus douche in a pink sweater is inventing these things. These are the stooges, the Ronald McDonald type characters that are put in charge of companies to roll this technology out. It is all orchestrated and run by DARPA and controlled by, I don't even want to say what, but it is not the people that control these organizations. And I seriously doubt they're even human. So whatever this entity that's rolling this technocratic control grid out is doing it through DARPA under the vehicle of Sam Altman, Bill Gates types of, effeminate little whatever they are, and fooling people into thinking that we're just making these new strides and developments, when in reality, it's more akin to conditioning cavemen to use the technology. So if you would have gone back in time and you took a cell phone and you give it to a caveman and say, hey, here's a cell phone, he would probably club you to death because he thinks it's the work of the devil or whatnot, right? You might be right, actually. Probably smarter than us, the cavemen. They knew not to eat hair and poison themselves and rape their kids, but whatever. So smarter or stupider than a caveman aside, we have to be conditioned to accept the technology. So they release it out in trickles for multiple reasons. First of all, to maximize the return. So they, have 10 times more power in computing than they release, but they release each iteration 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, so they can maximize their financial return and fleece the consumer to pay for their own enslavement. And so what this does is it allows people to intellectually keep up pace with what's happening and not get overblown. Because when they've done tests and they've even made simple changes in technology, if they do it too fast, people can't keep up and they kind of go off the rails and they just don't use the tech. They don't stay in line, basically. But when they do it in increments, gradually, like turning up the temperature on the pot to boil the lobster, then the humans don't know, and they just go along with it step by step by step by step into their own detriment. So that's what's happening, and it doesn't just end at the Internet of Everything, but it goes into the Internet of Thoughts. So your thoughts can now be digitized, which people don't understand, and has been capable of being done for a very long time. As Jessica mentioned, I do have in my lectures all of these things covered in depth. I have like a dozen lectures, very technical lectures on these matters with all of the links and references. If you want the PowerPoints and such, you can always contact me through the website and I'll provide them to you. And in fact, you should fact check everything I'm saying and everything everybody says, because we live in a world of deception. So aside from the Internet of Thoughts, we also have the Interbody Nano Network, which is plugging people into this digital nightmare. And we also have the Internet of Battlefield Things, IOBT, and that is the military's implementation of Skynet, being orchestrated and run, and they've put in some extra layers, but it was initially what's called Joint All-Domain Command and Control, JADC2, where they were putting billions of dollars behind a project to eliminate silos in the military. So weapon systems are protected by silos. So meaning that it's not all behind one console where one madman can get in control and cause the apocalypse. That was a protective thing. Or there couldn't be a decapitation strike and take out all of our capabilities. Or we couldn't be hijacked and co-opted by just one person taking over, which would be super easy. That's why in the Republic we have the different branches of government to hopefully counterbalance all of this. Now, so this JADC2 program gets rid of all of the silos and puts all of that control behind one console. So all of the weapon systems, including operations in the information environment, OIE, which is social media manipulation, and cognitive neural warfare, which is what we're in. And it puts it all behind one console called the Lattice operating system. So some little doofus can sit behind a cell phone and can activate the kill chain and can literally activate and control the whole power and might of the US arsenal and have it deployed on the people. So where is all this going and what the heck is going on, right? So with this JADC2 bringing all the weaponry and all the gadgetry under one platform, now they've got with their 5G, 6G, 7G, which Sabrina Wallace does a very good job exposing, they've got what they need to roll out artificial superintelligence, which is what they've all been talking about. And I know people don't pay attention, but they don't see that their governments are talking about putting AI in charge of government, including Trump. Trump is very big on using AI for governance and using robots for all kinds of different jobs and functions, including soldiers. So killer robots, T4s from Terminator. So that's what Elon Musk and Trump are up to. So it doesn't matter if you lick the left or the right side of the turd. It's still rolling out the digital AI Frankenstein, which is a total control grid that is basically being rolled out as we speak. So that's, I guess, the short of it, if that was short and not overly terrifying or complicated. But that's where we are. 2025 is the year of the robots. They will be rolling out en masse from different vendors, different countries all over, all according to script. The big players in this world work together. It is top against bottom, not left against right. It's all the same string pullers. These people you think are opposed to each other are not. They work from the same script. Sometimes this side is the good guys. Sometimes that side's the bad guys, just like the old Globetrotter versus the Washington Generals. And it's not an accident they use the term Washington Generals to be the losers that constantly lose. It's not an accident. And it's not an accident that Globetrotters is the globalist movement, making the Washington Generals look like complete freaking idiots. So that's what's going on. And they've done an excellent job brainwashing the populace into thinking that their destroyer is actually their savior, when in fact who they've elected is somebody who's rolled out 5G and the death V. I know your platform, so I'll be careful with my linguistics. And now he's elected again to finish the job, to roll out AI and governance. Although he says a lot of great things that I think are good, like getting rid of the Department of Education, which is just corrupt to its very core. At its tenet and at its core, it's constructing and building the AI Frankenstein. And that's what all people have to be aware of and informed about, because it's happening as we speak. 2025, you will all see, and you will look back at 2024 and earlier and wish for that history and that past, because in the future, it will never, ever, ever be the same. And the level of change is exponential. We're talking about the level of change from Tesla and electricity being like maybe, say, 2 inches, and the change that we're facing with AI being the Empire State Building or greater. It is exponential. Artificial superintelligence hinges on the interbody nano network, which is why they've managed to get all that tech into people and have it self-propagate and construct as self-assembling nanotechnology in the body, which they've openly talked about at Davos and Bill Gates, and they have all the patents and all that stuff. So it's not speculative, it's done. And that's what they need to get artificial intelligence from what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence, where it is at or surpasses human intelligence, which is already done. And there's already an AI mind cloud. And just recently, they've rolled out the AI world sim, which I told people for years that they already have an AI world simulator, and now NVIDIA has officially come out and admitted it. So that means they train their robots in the cloud in these virtual sim environments. And when they do roll out their digital T4s, that they are like a million years of experience in the battlefield arts. So that's basically where we are. 2025
Yeah.
is just around the corner. Sorry, that was long.
Thank you so much,
Am I giving you
Ryan.
a headache?
No, I already had a headache to begin with because of the weather and the pressure changes and everything going on. So, no worries about that. I'm really familiar with your work, as you know. So for me, it's not anything that I have to really like focus on, but I know that our audience who hasn't really become familiar with anything tech happening in the world in a deep level, on a deep level, it's going to be a lot, and they're probably not going to understand a word of what you said. And that's where I'm kind of, I find a lot of us who really did the research on the tech are sort of like living in the future, because we already went through the whole, educating ourselves on what's out there and how it works. And it just sounds so surreal and futuristic to, grandma and grandpa. So for the average person, to really understand where this is going with no base knowledge, how does just an average person, what could you describe as them like just experiencing what this is? How is this affecting them? How is this, changing their lives on a day-to-day level in a tangible and visceral way? Like what could they pick up on and see that they could then begin to relate, what you're saying to?
Well, first of all, they know their cell phones and Alexa are spying on them because when they talk about something, and oftentimes people report thinking about things and not actually searching them or whatever, them showing up in
Yeah.
the ads. So this could be actually the interbody nano networks, which have penetrated the human body. And it could be using their thoughts and using that to advertise, as far as we know. And we know that 6 and 7G use the human body and use hop through. So literally each person is becoming an antenna and information is going through them if they have that nanotech in them. So it's using what's called energy harvesting, EH, either through piezoelectric, flow, light, which is why they use the LEDs and all these other piezoelectric, pyroelectric, flow, light, and all these different mechanisms to charge and to run the interbody nano network, so that it's literally charging in their body from these different mechanisms. So as long as your heart is pumping, you're fueling energy into the interbody nano network, which is, I keep repeating it because it's so important because people just don't know. But yeah, that
Yeah.
nanotech is in people. La Quinta Columba has, demonstrated this. Tons of different doctors and researchers of good intention, positive human beings have exposed this. So it's there, it's a fact. If you don't know, you're behind the curve and you're probably a victim of it. So aside from just that, people are seeing
But
the
jacking
radical.
is basically, sorry, it's basically jacking into the human biology, the metrics like measuring the heartbeat, just any information that they can get on the person's like physiology and biology, and then using that to extract information that they can then use to sort of, either change someone's perception about something or gear their thoughts towards something specific, generate fear. So is that basically what
Well,
you're
there's
speaking
layers there.
on?
So the way it works is there's three tiers. The first tier from the nanotech that's building in people's body, it's tier one, and it hops from the person to the cell phone or the wireless router. Then it hops over to the grid and is sent and is consolidated at tier three by these massive AI quantum computing, and not always quantum, but massive AI data centers where all this information is going in to fuel DARPA and many other telecom companies that are participants and co-conspirators in this.
So do they need 5G to be able is that the like the minimal level to basically assimilate all that information
um,
with the interbody
to
networks and
answer
all that?
that, I'm not going to say they couldn't do it through 4G. They can do it through any kind of digital communication. But to get the scope and scale and volume that they need
Yeah.
to get to artificial superintelligence, yes, they need 5G. They didn't roll out 5G so people could download their porno faster. It's not faster. It's because it's multi-layered and they have a lot more channels that they can use for what I'm talking about, which is harvesting your information. And what you talked about, harvesting your heart rate and health and all that stuff, yes, that's one layer of it. And that's the open layer that they openly talk about. That's in patents. The other layer that they're less open about is the effect on the being. So they say, yes, we harvest this information, we send it over the grid, but they don't talk about what they can download to you. So this
Yeah,
is
how does that mechanism work? How does that work? Do you need the nanotech in your body for that to happen? Because
Well,
if you're
again,
just
a tricky question because yes, on one layer, you need nanotech in your body to be able to receive that information. But on another layer, you have electronic warfare and frequency weapons that you don't need anything in your body to be a target of that. You could just be microwave. Like if I put something in the microwave, it doesn't matter if it has nanotech in it, it's going to get fried. You know what I'm saying? So they do
it'll
have
get
the
fried faster if there's metal in the microwave. So I
exactly
suppose
right.
there is a connection there, yeah.
Exactly right.
But okay, so your point is that, just through 5G towers using electromagnetic frequency, the microwave, frequency in particular, I think is being used, right? Because that's what that runs on. Um, I don't know if terahertz, I think terahertz is 6G, but beaming that specifically at someone could control their thoughts
Well,
or
you're definitely
could
going to have
change
a
their
bad day.
biology. Eh?
You're definitely going to have a bad day if you're being beamed with this. And what we're seeing is people, whistleblowers and purebloods across the planet are reporting that they're taking meters and they're testing their bed and they're seeing that they're being targeted in their beds. So I don't know if you saw the NexRad radars in the United States, but after 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., moving with the time zones, they activate the NexRad radar stations and they literally microwave fry the population. So if you think that your government represents you or anybody in charge of it is actually working for you, you're fucking stupid. They have actively deployed weapons of all flavors against you. This is an anti-human movement, and there is almost 0% probability that it's run by human intelligences. So whatever it is, it's terraforming, destroying our planet, targeting biology, targeting anybody who's of the natural world. So whether you want to believe it's AI, demons, aliens, whatever it is, humans are no longer in control. So we are being microwaved at night. Whistleblowers and truth tellers and purebloods are being specifically targeted through the tech. They are coming at us in all directions. You may have seen Scott Bennett recently was assassinated, poisoned, a rapid-acting pancreatic cancer, as it's claimed, or whatnot. But we all know that Scott Bennett was exposing a lot of very serious truths. Carrie Cassidy came out and posted just yesterday that she's received word that they're coming out, taking off the gloves with truth tellers and those exposing and serving humanity. Michael Shrimpton was apparently targeted, and it's going to be many, many, many more. So the war is on. If you don't know these things, you're going to be a victim to it. If you don't stand up against these things, it's just a matter of time before it wins. So we only have one option, and that's to resist and destroy those that are doing this to us. And if we don't do that, then humanity and all the natural world is lost.
I think the first part of it is education. Like people really need to, like what would be that first, just that first very basic level of knowledge? Because I think the people that are well versed in what's going on, they're like way out there, right? So like I said, it sounds so futuristic and sci-fi and no one believes it. And so for like
And
the
then,
average,
Jessica, then
we're talking about waking up the collective. Like what do you think is that first step for the general population to have to um, just come to terms with and understand like that first very step that society needs to take to begin to, fight the monster that we've
well,
encountered
I
here?
mean, go in the mirror, look at yourself, and smack yourself in the face and yell, "Wake up,"
No,
because you
no,
can
but what
listen
is
to
the knowledge
sleep
that people
through
need to know?
that our governments and technology is trying to actively genocide us, and ignoring it
Okay.
won't make it go away. It's just going to ensure that it wins. So if you don't realize that our governments have been weaponized against us, our tech companies, our billionaires are not our friends. All these people who are put in positions of power are not our friends. They're there to enslave us and they're actively genociding us. If you don't
Yeah.
know that, I can't help you and nobody can help you and you're going to be a
Well,
victim. And we're all going to
I
be
think that's
victims because all
I
we
think
have
that's
is
a problem
numbers.
though, because that's like a big step that people are going to have to take. You know, there's a huge community of people that are aware of like the depths of, the insanity, but then the majority of people are in this place of, they still trust, right, that the government is working in their favor. They still trust, like that's the majority of people. So
Yep.
if we want, people aren't going to jump from A to Z. They're not going to jump from here to there, right? They just need to learn that first step about the tech. And I'm curious if there's something that they can even, I know that when you hold your phone for too long, you can definitely feel, something negative, right? You feel that it makes your arm go numb, might give you a headache. On the little pamphlet that when you buy the phone, the instruction manual, it says hold the phone, a couple inches away from the head. Don't use it for longer than 15 minutes. So there is information out there that people have just not, everyone just went on the bandwagon and holding their phones next to their head forever, hours a day. So I'm just wondering, like that little step that people can start taking, and to really, it always takes that first kind of experience to start tying things together, And so I'm wondering how we can get people from A to Z. How do we get people to
It'll be
really start
different for each
working on
person,
that?
Jessica. It's not like a one size fits all. What woke you up? What woke me up? What woke up different people? It's something that triggers you from your slumber and your ignorance. And it's funny, I'm closing my eyes as we speak. It's a good metaphor for the world having its eyes closed still right now. So there's a joke there somewhere. But basically, it's opening your eyes to reality. And if you choose to, people can't see what they don't want to see. You can't see something that affects your paycheck. So if you work for them, of course you don't want to know and you're going to say, no, it's not possible. I can't see it. Yeah, because you're going to be financially destroyed. All of us that enter into this realm pay a price. I've been destroyed. You've been harassed. Frickin' Scott Bennett's dead. Lots and lots and lots of people pay a price. But what we have to understand is that it's literally all or nothing. The natural world wins, or the natural world is utterly annihilated. And if you don't understand that, I go through all the steps and all the information. So if you want one step, the first step is Ryan Veli's information. So go through my lectures, go through everything I'm teaching, every single one. It's all timeless. It doesn't change with time. It's not like stale information about politics and shenanigans. It's not. It's all technical training for people to learn how to wake up and defend themselves against the beast system. So do you want to learn about the beast system? Then listen to my teachings, because I've sacrificed everything in my life to bring those teachings forward and to warn people about what we're facing. And what has it done for me? Nothing. Nothing at all in the least have I gained or prospered from being vocally and opposing the beast system. So
Yeah.
if you're not willing to give everything to the cause, then you're going to give nothing to the cause and we're going to lose.
Well,
But
the average
but
person just wants to live they want to live a good life, and they don't want to have, no one wants to have to deal with this. You don't want to have to deal with this. I
but
don't want to have
nobody's
to
going
deal
to live
with this.
a good life starting in 2025. It already started with COVID in 2020.
Right?
And nobody is going to live a good
Exactly.
life 2025 onward. It's going to be a living nightmare. So you can either stop the people doing it, or you could just let them do it to you over and over and over again and say, I just want a good life. I just want to get my paycheck and work for the people doing it. And I want to be in the military human centipede. And I want to do all this and that. But at the end of the day, goodness, humanity, the natural world, that includes all the animals, all the natural functionings, will be destroyed. The reason for that, and this is where we get into the esoteric, is that this is a demonic onslaught attack on our planet. You don't know it, and I don't care if people believe me or not, but it is an extra dimensional force that has been working and drilling its way into human civilization and now is in a position to absolutely annihilate everything. They're doing that through the tokenization of every natural asset and the transformation of everything in the natural world. You've already seen that with GMO. You've already seen them go from junk DNA for our brilliant academic scientists. Oh, yeah, your code's just junk. Believe us, trust us, because it's a dogma. And then, oh, yeah, we're going to write some code and we're going to rewrite your RNA. So which is it? Is it junk or is it super important? Because they're writing things to recode it. So they're recoding your body. They're convinced people, and if you ever thought that this was an intelligent planet, they've convinced people that CO2 is the enemy when CO2 is plant food. Plant food. So they've convinced people to think that cow farts and CO2 is the enemy. So they need massive structures to get the CO2 out of the atmosphere. The CO2 in the atmosphere is between 350 and 400 ppms part per million. In cannabis plants, for example, will take up to 2,400 parts per million. And guess what happens to them? They get bigger. So anybody who's done any growing of anything knows that by adding CO2 in a growing environment, plants get bigger. Even NASA will tell you that the CO2 has been leading to a greenification of the planet. But still, we have people who claim to be intelligent, who claim to be influential, who claim to be academics, who claim to be scientists, that will go before other people and tell them that cow farts are the enemy when they're poisoning with heavy metals in the air, barium, cadmium, graphene, everything you can imagine, aluminum in the sky, fly ash, you name it, nanotech. They've done experiments with human red blood cells trying to infect us, but that wasn't good enough. So they're poisoning the water, they're poisoning the land. If you didn't notice in Ohio, that was completely staged. That's dioxins, the most toxic substances known to man, that were strategically placed there and exploded at the same time to create total toxification. And that's going to be mutated, damaged, retarded children all over this area for I don't know how long. People haven't seen or understood it yet.
Ryan, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How did you like what happened during your awakening to this knowledge? Because I know you were working on the tech itself, like, you were working with the technology. How did that, I don't think I've ever heard that story of how you came into your awakening with it.
So, to condense it, I started off as a military police officer. I went in and I was doing extra duties as military intelligence on these what are called warfighter exercises, where you all get together and you basically conduct an artificial war. And I was working the intel side of it. And I was going to transfer over and change my MOS to intel. And then my commander said, no, 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 you need to be an IO. So I started to look at IO and information operations, which is a newer field, and it has PSYOP, civil affairs, all this crazy stuff, electronic warfare, network attack defense, computer operator type stuff. And that's when, I decided that I would go in that direction. But what happened was there was a break in service at the time. I had worked like something like 72 days straight. And I was like, you know what, I'm just done. And it was too boring at the time. So I got out for a few years, and then I ended up hearing from one of my former colonels who was working as a contractor. And then I got in and a strategic level, and I started to author, net attack, net defense material. And we were exposed to a lot of information in the IO realm, and advanced technologies and research and development was what they were doing. I won't mention, I've mentioned it before. I don't want to push that matter. But basically, I think I was in some kind of a vetting program. They had a career path plan for me, and I was being promoted. And some of my work ended up becoming uh, policy in the Bush Junior administration. So actually, my work has become policy in the U.S. government. And so I was being promoted, and I was being given information, and I guess they were trying to see how I handle it. And it was going fine. And, I was discovering a lot of the robotics and tech and AI and all that kind of stuff, the drones. I was warning people about mass deployment of drones way in advance. Then it got to China, because one of the things I was writing policy about was dealing with China as an adversary. And I was being promoted in this. The president of the organization told me, we're going to promote you. We like your work, Ryan, but you have to let go of this China thing. I'm like, have to let go of this China thing. What's more of a threat in the world right now than organ harvesting communist monsters? that are actively stealing our intellectual information, building up weapons. Their generals are talking about the next 100 years being the age of China and how they were going to annihilate us and all this. And I'm covering all this open. They're just openly talking about annihilating us. And then I have my superiors telling me that this isn't a problem. And I'm like, well, how is that? He's like, don't worry, they're with us. They're with us. Yeah, we're all on the same team. We're all on the same team. So what that means is that there's a top level echelon that's controlling nations like slippers. And they're just fooling the low level masses in the theater, the audience, to make them think that there is a separation at the top level. But in reality, what they're doing is they're orchestrating a narrative and a storyline to bring the ignorant masses into positions that they have pre-planned for them, which is and surrounds and is completely revolving around AI and the technological prison, which we're all being rolled into. So that's when I said, oh my God, what am I? I'm a Death Star engineer. I thought I was joining G.I. Joe, but I've joined like Vader and Cobra and, Spectre. So I'm like, man, I got to get out of here. So the next day, I called I called for a meeting with them. I had my car packed with all my stuff from my condo, and I quit and I crossed the border, and I hadn't been back for something like 8 or 9 years. I
Wow.
came back to Canada, and then, like I said, there was a bunch of harassment, all kinds of crazy stuff that happened. My companies are destroyed. Everything that I tried to set my hand to has been kind of collapsed. But what I have is character, and I have the truth on my side, and I have the divine on my side that's been at my back and keeping me alive and keeping me motivated and keeping me speaking without fear and without any bullshit or nothing to sell or no secret agenda or any of that crap like so many have. Whoa, okay.
So are you familiar with Charles Lieber?
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
nanotech, nanotech.
Yeah. So he developed like the injectable nanotech.
Hmm.
Um and he was selling this technology to China, right? And then apparently he got caught and then they prosecuted him. So there is this kind of layer going on. There's like a deeper layer where everything's all connected, but then there's like surface layers where there's still politics playing out.
Or he's
And
being penalized for something he did or didn't do. So he may have grown a conscience, he may have spoken out of school, he may have did something to get pissed off, then they pick him up for something that he was authorized to do or allowed to do knowingly. Because they did intentionally transfer all the technology from the United States to China as a plan. After World War II, the individual, the Chinese American that was debriefing the Nazi scientists with vastly superior technology was sent back to China to found the Chinese deep state. Now, China and the Vatican, this story goes back to the 15th century. The Vatican infiltrated, the Jesuits infiltrated China. They started their own bloodlines. They mixed their demonic spawn blood with different families there, and it's those families that run things today. So the average Chinese person thinks that Chinese run China. That is not the case. They have a mixed hybridized bloodline that's been placed in control of China. That's why the Chinese government treats the people like utter filth. Your first indicator that you've been hijacked is your government treating you like filth. If your government, no matter what it is, treats you like filth, that's because they've been infiltrated and they are not constituted of you. Just like the Canadian communist government right now, run by Queen Justine. This guy can commit no amount of crimes. He can molest children. He could be caught on Diddy tapes, yet still somehow this arch criminal is still in charge of Canada. And instead of the RCMP or CSIS going after these pedivores, you have them harassing influencers and trying to threaten females that are trying to expose different things and are literally harassing and tormenting people who are trying to expose the truth. So
yeah, I agree.
our Canadian
I
law
agree.
enforcement and military is going to have to really look in the mirror and ask themselves if they want to bring about the beast system and they want to work for pedophiles and pedivores and these different demonic worshiping monsters,
Well,
or they want to do
yeah.
their duty in their job. Because my grandfather was a lieutenant colonel in the Canadian military. He had a lot of, respect for the Canadian structure, but knew it was corrupt to the core. And so he taught me a lot of things. And so I still have faith in the Canadian people. I hope that the people that hold these positions eventually realize, and if they don't, they need to go through my lectures because I explain it all. So if you don't know and you're one of these little sniveling intel people listening right now, you need to go and listen to what I'm teaching and what I'm exposing, because what you're helping construct is an absolute nightmare for you, your descendants. There is no winning this. There is no amount of money or promises that can be made, first of all, that'll be fulfilled or upheld, that don't lead to an utter nightmare future unless they stand up against them.
Okay, so Ryan, I think what's important is that, a lot of me coming from like a divine feminine aspect, analyzing, okay, why, how are people participating in this? Where is the cognitive dissonance happening? Because I'm sure from my perspective, the way that I see it is in general, the majority of the population are actually good people that just aren't educated, that don't
Right.
have the information necessary to make the right decisions. And then another portion of it, and the reason why I'm bringing up this guy here, Charles Lieber, is that, he developed um, basically, he is known for his contributions to the synthesis, assembly, and characterization of nanoscale materials and nano devices, the application of nanoelectronic devices in biology, and as a mentor to numerous leaders in nanoscience. And so it was all about like he developed the injectable nanotech. And this goes along with, so like I'm curious as to what your thoughts on how many people, because like we might be dealing with, not just regular people having to wake up regular people and educate them to make the correct decisions, but they're, what percentage of people do you think have been, affected by nanotech? And, how many of these people are actually in control of their vessels at this point, and how many are just what is it
Automatons, right?
called? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question, and it blends over to the esoteric side of things. So my take on that is that we are ensouled, we have a soul. Now, when the sperm meets the egg, there is a spark of energy that comes from the divine. They don't know where it comes from. This is the first, I would say, tentacle or strand connecting interface between the soul and the biology. It doesn't just happen later. It's like from the cell's inception. And what happens is it starts to grow. And as you birth a child, that child has the ability to develop and is going through ever more sophisticated processes. At which point, if the child is taught well, the child will have self-love, love for God, love for others, and will nurture the seven virtues. And as you nurture the seven virtues and you purify your temple, you invite the divine consciousness, the Christos, to dwell inside the individual. As you are manipulated and destroyed by the world, and people who have trauma and all these horrible things, they go the other direction. They give into the seven deadly sins. And as they go more and deeper into those evils, then that opens them up more and more to demonic infestation by virtue of the soul recoiling from the temple. So as you defile your temple, the soul recoils from the temple, and then that leaves space for disincarnate evil entities to enter and influence the being. So this is why there is initiation. So what's happening, and people don't get this, your entire world is run by cults. Your entire civilization is run by cults. You just don't know it. Now, when you look and want to prove that, you look at things like fraternities. So when you start doing an initiation rituals and all these things, it's all about disassociating the conscience, the soul from the being, and putting you in this, again, human centipede style hierarchy. And what this does is it allows demons and extra dimensional beings to influence you. So that's why you have to go through all these initiations and all these rituals to get to any kind of level of control. So that's why I laugh my ass off when people say, Oh, this is a good billionaire. Are you stupid? There's no such thing as a good billionaire. To get to be a billionaire, you have to have completely and utterly compromised yourself. Otherwise, the other billionaires won't let you in the club and they'll destroy you. And they control the banks and the cops and the politicians and the assassins and the wet work teams and the ADL and all these people who can destroy you, like they did to John McAfee or anybody who gets to a certain level that they don't want, they destroy them. If they're a billionaire in good standing in this world, they have completely sold their souls. So when you ask these people in these hierarchies, and I know people who've risen to high level in the government, and even as functionary administrators, they go through ritual and initiation that gives up their soul to be controlled by other beings, let's say. So when you ask, what hope do we have from the people in the system? They either, and a lot of them don't know this mechanism. They don't know what I'm telling you. So if they understood what I'm telling you and they haven't gone too deep into the pit, they might be able to say, okay, I don't want to do this. I want to get out. I want to reject this. I want to take in my soul again. I want to submit to the Christos, to the divine consciousness of the universe. I want to feed the seven virtues, and they can climb their asses out of that pit. How many do you think will ever do that?
Well, I think there's a lot of peons holding together, right? The scaffolding, right? So
Correct.
so you're talking about the billionaires at the
Bricks in the
top, 100,
structure.
yeah,
Bricks in the
100%.
structure.
Sorry?
Bricks in the structure. Important to see it because they're all at the bottom. They're all bricks in the structure. And the density and the strength of that brick comes from evil. And that comes from them feeding the seven deadly sins and taking on demons. And that's how they rise in that
No,
hierarchical
well, I
pyramid
don't think
structure.
I don't think the average person working in government is going through that process that you're talking about because it's disassociated, right? They just need to go in and do their job. They're not trying to move up the ladder. Like the
So
average
maybe
person, I'm thinking of just the average Joe, right? That's holding the whole structure together, that has an administrative job, in government somewhere or in a corporation and so on and so forth. Like these guys are just going in, they're an accountant, they're in operations and they're just focused on their little, the aspect of what they're doing, their work, and then their life is connected to beautiful family experiences and so on and so forth. So regarding those people, I'm wondering, like, how much you think the nanotech has affected just like the general population and how that might inhibit, people waking up. Like, where are we at with in terms of that?
so. To wake up on that, they have to A, realize they were super stupid in taking it. Most people, it's easier to fool them than it is to convince them they've been fooled. So this is why you have the 8, the 9 timers that just keep going back. They keep getting sick every time they take it. They lose people they love. They justify it, but they keep going back because they will never admit they're wrong. They will die before they admit they're wrong, and that's what has to happen. That level of ignorance and stupidity and distance from God, you're going to die. You're going to die because you're stupid and because you were too arrogant and prideful to accept your folly and to accept your mistakes, to apologize, to ask for forgiveness from the divine, from the people around you who you ostracized, who you insulted, who you called names, who you ran around and told people to lift their masks and all this idiocy. They just won't do it because they don't have what it takes on the inside to get out of it. So most people that work for government are just that low-level peon, as you say, but on their backs stands the beast system. So as long as they all stand there, they're elevating and propping up this beast system. And I don't know about you, but the government people I've dealt with are mostly pure trash. They don't care about natural law. They don't care about you. They don't care if you're getting screwed. I get seizure, all kinds of crazy crap from government that's impossible to pay. It's invented. It's nonsense. And they harass me constantly.
I have a
So I
different
deal with them.
experience.
So
Like
I
I
don't
know a
have
lot of,
respect for them. They're
sorry. Yeah, no,
they're
I'm
why the
sure that
world is what it is.
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people in government that are like that. I think, but I know a lot of people who are just genuinely good people. And I think even more importantly, government is a small aspect now. It's corporations, it's these big conglomerate, these huge corporations, that are running the show now anyway. And it's like, what do you want to be a part of? Really looking into having to take that step, I think, is the security and, the fear of survival. Having to say, okay, well, if I give up my cushy job, I've been with this corporation for a long time and I got my retirement and, everything's set up. I think that's where people are really afraid. And I think during 2020, we were able to sit back and see like, wow, a lot of people weren't willing to take that step to, you know, they're like, I'd rather get the injection than to, even though they didn't want to, than to leave their job.
And
So I
and
think a
what
lot
that
of it,
is an absence of self-love. They don't love themselves. And you don't love yourself when you don't love God. So if you don't love truly and completely submit to the divine, then you don't love yourself and you don't appreciate your own perfection. And when pressured, you will just do what evil tells you. Because if you
yeah.
don't love God and you don't love yourself, you don't really love others. So not only will you defile and destroy your own temple, but then you'll encourage others to do so and you'll pressure and force them to do it. So it's a
Yeah,
chain.
so that's a
So
very good point. That's a very good point. And so, uh, in that, because nowadays, religion is falling apart. A lot of the structures that, were used as channels to supposedly connect us to the divine aren't there anymore. Um, and so, what would you recommend? Like, if someone wants to reconnect, right, with their divinity, where exactly do they start,
you don't need a religion to teach you to connect to God. It's just a farce. It's a joke. So you think that you need some priest or imam or go to some synagogue, Jewish or satanic or whatever. The connection to source is inside you. Feed it with goodness. Feed it with worship. Do good things. Feed the seven virtues or follow some idiotic cult. And that's just the truth. And if people don't like it, I don't care. I don't do this to be liked. I do this so that when I get to my maker, I can stand with a straight posture, my chin and my head held high, that I did my absolute best to educate, protect, and defend people who are hopelessly outgunned and out intelligenced by evil. And if those people who I try to defend and I'm standing up for choose to attack me instead of back me and choose to screw me instead of protect me, then fuck them. And, if God sent me to a losing mission, then maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. Maybe I should have been nicer. Maybe if God's going to send somebody else next time or other people, maybe they'll be nicer. Maybe they'll get through. Maybe they'll talk slower. David Icke actually is really solid. He explains it very slow, very good for beginners. I jump into it. I hit it
Yeah,
hard. I
but David
never
Icke is
give up.
quite out there. I don't know if he's good for beginners. It's way too far-fetched for a lot of people. Sabrina Wallace as well. I mean, but it's so extensive that like, if you start listening to her, it's just like, oh, this is a crazy woman, right? So the baby steps to get there, I think people just didn't see the tech coming, right? So I think it's really hard if they don't understand the electromagnetic spectrum, frequency spectrum. To me, that's a place to start. The Invisible Rainbow, that book, I forget the author's name, that is a great place to start because when we introduced electricity to the world, worldwide, 30% of the population experienced harmful effects from that. And so this was kind of the trend. And so every new frequency wave that we introduce into the atmosphere, into the environment will, more or less have a negative effect on, I'm guessing, around 30-40% of the population. And so starting to understand the information, like you got to go deep. You can't just grasp it all right away. But to close this up, because I know it's a lot of information for people and they can go to your channel and your website and, really start to go in depth if they want to learn about this stuff. I really wanted to dig into some of the antithesis of the Frankenstein. So things that people can do to combat, what's happening. So if the Frankenstein's being built and it's this crazy AI monster that's connected to, social credit score, and it's going to be totally totalitarian and control every aspect of our life, what are the steps that we can take? I know you don't own a cell phone, right? So that would be one of the steps. Maybe we can talk a little bit, you can, share a little bit on what are some of the things that you think we can do starting right now to prevent this monstrosity from taking over the planet.
Just to finish up on the religion thing, I just want to point out that the importance, before I continue to answer your question, the importance of faith and the reason they push faith so hard is so that you have faith in a lie. So this is why it's a tenet of every religion is, oh, you have to have faith. You have to have hope. And these things are catches to keep you believing bullshit. So the truth can be accessed by you personally without any filter, without the need of any book. It's in you. God's in you. Okay. I just want people to be left with that because I
Thank
make
you.
mockery of things. I'm mocking it. Tablets from Papa Smurf and the Church of Psychedelic Mushrooms, whatever the bullshit is, it comes down to these tenets, dogmas, lies. Trust me, trust me, trust me, trust this, trust that, trust the interpretation, trust the 50 times it's been translated and retranslated. And that's where people get lost. And they get lost in deception. So to answer your question, why is this important? Because this is not a physical battle. This is a spiritual war. You win a spiritual war by connecting to the divine consciousness. If you keep looking, and I'm not against reading religion, I love a lot of the tenets of a lot of what they teach, the good things. There is good things to learn there. Soon as they organize into a religion and add the dogma and the have faith, trust me, I know what I'm talking about, and you're too stupid to know any better. That's when it becomes bullshit. When I teach something, I line up all of the facts. I have all of the links. It's all researchable. I insist you prove it. I insist you go and learn and do the homework and learn what I'm teaching so you know I'm not inventing it. But when people give in and just say, okay, I'm just going to believe what this or that, or it's a mess. So that's where the answer lies, is in a spiritual revolution amongst our people. It has to be a spiritual revolution, and we have to deserve the governments we have. So if we are fallen, spiritually corrupt beings, we will get a fallen, spiritual, corrupt government. But a enlightened government doesn't come from any one cult. That's not how it works. It comes from personal experience, worship, and connection to the divine source that we all have access to if we clean our temple and try to reach out to the divine. When you reach out to the divine reaches out for you. But if you never know to reach out to it, you'll never feel its love. You'll never feel that divine consciousness of the universe. So when you say, what are they building and how do we fight it? We have to spiritually empower ourselves and realize that this is a battle for everything in the natural world. This is all the natural, pure blood human civilization. This is all of nature. This is everything that's beautiful in the world. So if you don't appreciate the gravity of where we're at as a planet and you don't understand the importance, I can't help you. But
Yeah, because
everything is at
people
stake.
don't understand. Like on the Canadian government website, they have that biodigital convergence document, showing where they're,
Horizons.ca.
yeah, horizons.ca, where they're aiming to go. And this is where I think, I've read it to people out loud, and they just thought it was a fake website. I was like, no, this is the Canadian government website. They're
Yeah.
planning on merging biology with technology, right? So they state that, and this is what you're talking about, because when you're saying these things, people might not understand what you're referring to, but they want to change, they actually want to change, the basis of what humans are
Mhm.
by merging technology, this nanotechnology with our biology to create a new race of
Yeah,
people.
Homo
So
Genesis, which can be patented and does not have any more God-given human rights because only human beings with genetic code that is human have God-given rights and the law applies to you. Soon as your code has been manipulated or edited by a corporation, you now become corporate property And there is US case law, which I expose in my lectures and give all the links and all the proof. So homoborg is now a rules-based entity, and it operates on the Internet of Everything and is a simple little digital blip on a screen to be controlled by God knows what, because they're putting it all in one place.
Yeah, and I think, what's even more important than, basically becoming the property of some corporation is the fact that once you merge artificial intelligence, artificial substances with natural biology, it begins to take over, right? Let's say, you have the human body, and the more artificial elements you start inputting in there, the less natural elements, are within that entity, that person. And so there's less connection to the natural world.
And they try to sell it as progress when it's devolution. Instead of teaching
Yeah.
you how to use your natural biology, which has all these higher capabilities that we have that are latent that we just don't know how to use, so we just ignore. We're fluoridated. They block our pineal gland. They don't want us to know about DMT or any of the ways that we could kind of biohack these things. And they, medicate us with all the pharmakia and all this crap. And now they're creating a frequency grid, so it's even harder to get out of your body and to do what you need to do to connect to the divine. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
because you will
all a
own
very
less of
complex.
your thoughts. That's right. Because you become less and less connected to your own thoughts. Like if we're substituting the natural biology with the nanotech, and our natural biology is to be connected to everything, through the natural net, the netter, this interconnected web of life. And then that's being slowly degraded. And then we're reconnecting that aspect of ourselves artificially through the interconnected web, World Wide Web, right? Um, we're just mimicking what we already do naturally,
Right.
and then there's less control over our own. I don't like using the word sovereignty too much, but there's less sovereignty over our own thoughts. Because imagine being connected to the internet, right? Through all this nanotech, you're just connected to the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, everything, and things are just being downloaded into your cells, and we're magnetic. So that's like a form of, it's like a computer memory space for things to be downloaded into, right?
Totally.
So yeah,
And that's where we get into the neurocognitive warfare. And this is a huge doctrine. They've been at it for over 3 decades. Aside from just the standard brainwashing you get being alive in this culture, they've now brought technology into it. There's over 20 different on the books patented technologies to manipulate your thoughts, not to mention anything involving black magic or demonic possession or any of that stuff. We're just talking basic technologies.
yeah.
So I think it was on the Economist cover in like 2002. They showed like the beginning of the brain control process, and now we're fully into it. COVID was just the final steps. They were testing how they've penetrated the average people. They gave them masks that on the box it said don't protect against viruses, and they said go wear this to protect yourself against the virus. And people ran around bossing each other around, and they saw that they have almost total control over 90% of the people, and maybe 3 to 10% of the people still have the capability to think or independent thought or logic or reason. And I think it's growing. I think more people are seeing the where we're at. But
Yeah,
really,
I
it's
agree.
still people are seeing it, but they don't understand what we have to do to stop it.
Well, that's it. We're having to detox the body, right? Like that's a huge, huge part of it. But I know that you posted some videos on detoxing nanotech. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of the where we're at. It's like, okay, if there is this stuff that we're intaking through the environment, the aerosols and the foods and everything, the water, how do we detox our body from it? Have you found any really good conclusive, studies or kind of information coming out on detoxing nanotech?
There are people that go way more into detail than I do, and there's a lot of arguments in this area because there are those that say that things like nano silver and C60 and all these things only help construct the interbody nano network, the self-assembling nanotech in the body. And there's those that say that it gets rid of it. So what I try to tell people is you can't go wrong with chlorophyll, spirulina, chlorella, You can't go wrong with adaptogens and functional mushrooms and good nutrition. You can't go wrong with meditation, sound healing, and connecting to the divine and praying to be redeemed and to be salvaged and to clean your body and those around you. You can't go wrong with that stuff. Do I
Yeah. Yeah.
do I believe that it's going to work? Honestly, if you want to go to doctrine on this, because again, I've read all the old ancient doctrines. Okay, I'm not coming out of a position of ignorance. I was a theology student. These were the first things I studied and learned about because I had to know how to access and connect to the divine. And once I learned, then I realized the folly and the flaws in the different philosophies. But one thing they do talk about is once you take the mark of the beast, there is no redeeming you. So if you want to believe that this tech is the mark of the beast, there are those that say there is no redemption past that point. If you've taken it voluntarily, you're voluntarily going into the abyss. I'm sorry.
I have a different opinion on that just because once you get really, really esoteric with things, you understand that we are creators, we are co-creating and all is mind. And so we go back to that first principle. And I do believe that you need to get to an elevated point to be able to really co-create with your mind. Not just anyone can come get out there and, but through that systematically, like doing the meditations, centering yourself, getting your energy, back into a proper rhythm, which only happens by contemplation, sitting with yourself, feeling when your energy is on, when it's off, and then trying to stay in that position of it being on where you have a strong connection to the divine. We can get to a place where we are commanding our body to expel, nanotech to expel the stuff that could be used against us.
Yeah,
But
and
it,
I leave
like you
room
said,
for
it's
that,
spiritual
yes, and that's why
revolution.
it's about voluntary. Because if you
Yeah.
were involuntarily infected with this, I do believe there may be ways, as you say, through will. And actually, Carrie Cassidy put out an article the other day saying that the ghost in the machine is God and that we have the power in our will to do anything and everything. Well, unless you're walking on water, healing the sick and raising the dead, you're not there yet. So maybe it's possible in our physiology, and as Yeshua taught us, his name's not Jesus, it's Yeshua. Um, yeah, maybe there is a way to do that. But are you walking on water and making water from wine and making manifesting things? Because I'm not. So unless you can do that and demonstrate it, then what you're saying is theory, and what I'm
Yeah.
dealing with is reality. And in
Yeah.
reality, people are being injected with nanotech that's hijacking their body, their mind, and their soul.
Well,
So
just I agree with everything you're saying, and I'm just bringing this point up because I have experienced different levels of this, and I know what is possible, but it requires that spiritual revolution because to get there requires all these other steps first, right? To lay the foundation to be able to be in that place. So bringing us back to where we started, okay, what is the thing that's the most required for us to overcome this? And it's again, connection to the divine and really connecting to soul, and then starting that process of purging so we can purge through all these layers and, hopefully in 300 years, maybe get to that point where, yeah, all is mind. And even though all this tech was coming at us, we still maintained a course forward in spiritual development to be able to actually meet it and to overcome it. That's my hopium,
yeah, no,
because
I'm in line with that, and I hope for that. And that's again, great teachers have come and gone, and they told us we will do greater things than they. So I believe that. That's why I try and learn those things, and I still work on the spiritual side of it daily because I think that that is the ultimate game changer. Is that when we can unlock these capabilities, which I know we have, and I've touched on some of them. So I know it's real, but at the same time, I can't walk on water. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
we're still like Neanderthals, like basically we're like babies, right? We're still trying to eat properly, right?
Mhm.
Just the food consumption. When I don't eat
Right.
organic meat, for example, I feel it in my body, and I get the headaches and like there's just so much junk out there in processed foods and that's what we're dealing with. We're literally we have to feed ourselves daily and we don't have access to a lot of organic foods in general. People, either economically It's without, it moves it away from reach or just accessibility geographically, right? So we're having to deal with these baby levels. And these are really important levels, right? What we consume. If we had access to really good organic food all the time, I think that would just really increase, our capacities on all these levels, right? And into getting there. But it's like a constant daily battle just with the food.
Yeah.
But you did, no cell phone was another big one. And I did see there was a movement in New York of within I think it's not the millennials, but it's the generation. Is it the millennials? Anyway, there's a group of kids, I think they're in their late teens that it's like a no tech movement. And this started in New York in this little community and it's growing. So there are,
That is the
some kids.
solution. And I finished my lectures with telling people I've now demonstrated the 802.15.6 connection, the tiers that it hops over from your body to your cell phone. I've demonstrated that it's a weapon. I've demonstrated that it's killing you. How many people tomorrow are going to go and get rid of your cell phone? One person out of 60 raised their hand. One out of 60. So it doesn't matter. I can prove it all day and all night. People will not give up their convenience and they will not believe the fire is hot until they're on fire screaming for their lives. So if this world has to burn and scream for its survival to know what the difference between truth and lies are, then so be it. But I tried, and good people like you have tried, and David Icke tried, and all these people who have given up everything for you tried. And if you ignore, that's completely on you. Feel the fire because it's
And
coming.
yeah, okay. And then also the second, if people are willing and they might get pushed to that point, like I wouldn't be surprised if these movements just grew. Okay. The no cell phone movement. And so the other thing is, the Wi-Fi in the house. So it's plugging directly into cable, Ethernet,
Yeah, that's what
or
I
fiber
have in my
optic,
house. I'm wired. There's
or
no
fiber
Wi-Fi
optic.
in my house. There's no cell phone, no portable phone, nothing that generates any kind of wireless signal. On all my laptops, I've completely disabled wireless. I've turned off the services. I've deleted drivers. They're completely disabled, so they can't be hacked and turned on again. They're broke. They ain't coming back on. So my
Yeah.
environment is totally Wi-Fi free, and that's like step one. Maybe that's why I'm not like a lobotomized moron right now. I don't know. Because
Yeah,
I'm not swimming
exactly.
in it.
So growing your own food, growing good organic natural foods, removing the tech that's around us so that that information can't be transferred. So even if we do have nanotech within us, we can't be controlled by the Bluetooth, right? Or we can't transfer, our, what's it called? The information, the cardiovascular information, all that information over to the tech.
Mhm. And
And
they do
then
that with a bunch of different protocols, not just with Bluetooth. There's others. So it's covered in my lectures. It's all my presentations. They can choose the protocol they use, what's present to hop it over.
Yeah. And then there's also, every car that was made after 1999 is now hooked into this system. So that would be Internet of Everything or
Yeah,
Internet of Things.
yeah. So this is an important thing you touched on because the vehicles are being used to assassinate people. Now, I had a Land Rover, and my Land Rover was hijacked over 20 different times. And I'm only alive because I had a physical transmission where I could put it in neutral. So when my car is hacked and my car accelerates to 8 and up to 9 RPMs, feels like I'm going to blast off into space and it's trying to run me off a bridge on the Victoria Bridge or whatever. That's the only reason I survived. And I got rid of that vehicle. And in the end, it was a PIN. There's a PIN code. That vehicle was 2020. So if you had 2020, the code, which couldn't be changed, you could hack my vehicle and cause my engine to accelerate to 8, 9 RPMs. And if you didn't have a manual transmission, you had a digital transmission, then they could just turn it off and you would be dead. So that's the only
And we
reason
have
I
seen a lot
thought.
of examples of that. We have seen a lot of examples of, people, especially with this, the not the smart cars, the electric cars,
Mhm.
either blowing up or,
Oh,
driving
they're
people into
bombs. They're
space.
total bombs. They tell you not to charge your lithium batteries in your house when they explode. And let me tell you something, if you drive one or you're around lithium batteries, soon as it starts to burn, run far away. Far, far away. It's not just one explosion. It's a series of larger, larger, and larger explosions. So I've seen people in elevators or whatever, just it's a little pop, and they're like, "Oh, that's scary." Then boom, get away. When these things start to pop, they start to pop. There's a lot of parking garages that won't allow them to be in the parking garages. There's ferries that won't allow them on ferries. They shouldn't be allowed in tunnels. They shouldn't be allowed on bridges. They are weapons. We've seen now with the Zionists turning on bomb pagers and bomb cell phones, it's not just pagers, it's your cell phone. So from a remote frequency, they can explode your cell phone. Now I ask the audience, how many of you tomorrow are going to go get rid of your cell phone?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. You're too stupid. So how do you help that? You ask me, how do you help? Only God can help that. Only telling them to connect to God. And if you're not going to listen to the people warning you, then listen to the divine source because you're just too goddamn dumb to understand this. And I'm
And
sorry
what
to be so blunt, but it's the end game now. I didn't just start this yesterday. My patience isn't just out now. I started this in 2009. I've laid it all out. I explained it all. I proved it all. I gave you all the evidence. I gave you all the facts. I have 500 views on my frickin' things. People don't want to listen. So what's the solution? For people to get smarter. Is that going to happen? No, because they don't respect intelligence. They respect
about
money.
these cell phones like Librium? Like there are different cell phones out there that have kill switches
So
and
you can't
that,
even take out your battery now in most cell phones. So if you
uh-huh.
can't take out your battery, what does that tell you? You buy
But are
something, you're
there,
a slave
I
to it.
think
It's your tether.
yeah, I think there are cell phones on the market. I only know about the Librium, but I know there are other ones where, it's just hard to get them. And there aren't that many. They're in production in the US, so the cost is higher and there's a lot of challenges around that, but I think there are hopefully going to be more and more options out there for cell phones that aren't connected, right? To this what do you
There's not
call it?
even payphones anymore. I was at the airport and I couldn't call my Lyft because there's no payphones. Okay? I had to borrow cell phones from strangers to call to get a Lyft because there's no payphones, not even in airports. So this
Hmm.
is all meticulously crafted. It's a really dark intelligence behind it. We're really behind the eight. People really need to wake up like 10 years ago because it's here now. They're rolling it all out, and they're still voting for the person bringing it out. He still openly says we're going to roll out AI and killer robots, and everybody's like, "Bravo, bravo, Trumpy, bravo, Elon." I'm like, I don't know. I've wasted my time. I think a lot of good souls that came here, we've wasted our time.
Well, I think you're
Are
just,
just
you've
not
been
meant to
talking
think.
about it for a long time, and a lot of people that have been educating people that, came into knowledge before anybody else and that, have been educating people for decades, are usually at a point of exhaustion. And also with the targeting and all that, that is
Yep.
completely real.
So I would suggest everybody speak out as loud and as long and as truthful as they can to absolutely everybody everywhere. And if you have people that are participating in it, you need to expose them. You expose information to them, give them a chance, expose it all. If we don't expose it all right now, we're all going into a technocratic digital nightmare that you can't even understand. So when just to connect the last horrible thing I have to say tonight or this morning is that the purpose of this control grid is to create what is called the eighth sphere. This is an inversion of what we would call like a purgatory, a space where souls wait to incarnate into bodies around the earth. They are creating an artificial eighth sphere where people and souls are trapped to continually incarnate over and over again. These demons, being detached from the divine source, from their wickedness still need divine force to exist. They get that divine force by causing suffering in human beings and harvesting that energy. That is the sole total purpose of this AI control grid they are creating, to make a digital prison whereupon they can create suffering in anybody they wish at any time to feed extra dimensional beings. If you don't believe that, look into the history of your controllers. Why do they do ritual sacrifice? Why do you think that is? I could explain all that, but it's horrifying. They've been doing this, and that's why they're in control. They're in control because they have agreements with extra dimensional evils.
If
And
people are
they're
really
building a
interested, they
system.
could look, they can look into Rudolf Steiner's work. I think he's the one that came up with the whole concept of the sphere, if I'm not mistaken,
It
like
was always in
describing
the
it
mystery
that
schools. He
way.
brought it forward, and he took a lot of
He got it.
shit from other mystery schools because he was exposing things that they didn't want out. So he didn't invent it. It's
But it
something
makes sense,
he
right?
brought to
Because
the.
yeah, sorry, Ryan. It makes sense because if we're injecting like nanotech, right, and we have this artificial intelligence in us, that is the separation. Like that becomes the asphere. So less and less natural and organic and connected to the natural grid and to the earth and all the beautiful and wonderful living energies that we were born into, and instead becoming like artificial, cold, disconnected from the natural world. That would be like that what they describe as the asphere.
Right, but still having a soul, which is what they feed on. So they don't
Hmm.
want to they're not disconnecting you from their soul. It's still there because they need it for it to be there. But I just want people to understand, if you're new to these things, I know that you have an esoteric audience. The esoteric side, they understand reincarnation and karma. Okay, they get that. This system will not allow any kind of escape from it. So if we allow it to be built, we will be stuck in it for thousands of years until we have another opportunity to break free. So if we fail, it's thousands of years of reincarnating and suffering in the worst ways. Do you not see that the UN and your establishment are pedivores and they're pushing pedophilia on the masses, mutilating children? That's just the beginning. That's just the itty bitty beginning. They're so evil and dark. That's why people go into cognitive dissonance. When you look deep enough into this,
Yeah.
you understand what we're dealing with. But it's not a time for the faint of heart and people to say, oh, that's too disturbing. It bothers me. I
No,
want
well,
to feel
I
bad
think it
later.
just
Too
it
bad.
requires
That's
it
the war.
requires steps. There's no way that someone's going to go from A to Z. That's normal. That makes sense. No one's going to go from I'm working for the UN, I'm doing good for the world to all of a sudden like they're actually the exact opposite of
Yeah.
what I've thought for years and years. I know people who work for the UN. I personally know people who work for the UN, and whenever I brought up the subject, it's like, no, because they're in their programs, they're building things.
They're at
They
their
really believe.
level. They're compartmentalized. They're small-minded. They're scared to look in areas that they're told not to. Yeah. And
I think that they haven't been exposed to the evil, and people that haven't been exposed to the evil, just generally good people aren't going to see evil out in the world because they're good people.
oh, come on.
And that
What's more evil than mutilating children, than butchering their genitals by perverts in the restrooms for girls, pool tournaments where it's two men dressed as women in the women's tournament, pedophilia, powerful pedophiles like the Clintons and all these people, all these billionaires do it, all these Hollywood stars do it. It's in the open. They can't
that
say,
stuff
"Oh, I
coming.
don't see it. I don't see it." You don't want to see it.
It's not in mainstream media yet, and it's not unless you go researching and you go off the, beaten track, you're not going to see that stuff yet. It's out there, and I believe there is a growing awareness. People are waking up to it. There's so many documentaries that have come out. We got the Jeffrey Epstein thing, we got the P. Diddy, we got things are coming out, but it is a slow kind of inching towards that really aha moment for a lot of people to go like, oh my God,
So
this
if
is
people
like
want that moment, I've been posting videos of children screaming in shipping containers and the people just letting it happen. Children screaming in shipping containers and these cowardly worms of human beings just like, oh, I'm not going to do anything. I might lose my job. I won't be able to pay my rent because I got fired for saving some kids who are being human trafficked. Oh, I'm so
No, no,
sorry.
no. Like
Oh my God.
those
So
people
please go to my
already caught
channel.
on.
You want to get educated? Natural intelligence on BitChute. Okay. I'm on Rumble, but most of my stuff is on BitChute. Scroll through it all. Search my name in quotes. Listen to my lectures. Listen, look at all the crazy, sick, insane, disgusting things going on in the world that I post on my channel and I expose. And I'm not the only one. So you want
I'm
to get
okay.
educated? I'm here for you. But if you
So
want to,
yeah, I'm gonna recommend, people have to incrementally go outside the beaten track and look at information that is being brought forward by the alternative media, by whistleblowers. It just has to be a part of our daily diet. We can't just turn on the TV, look at CNN, right? But I do highly recommend that people go slowly. Okay, because as you mentioned at the beginning, this can kill people. Awakenings can kill people. The cognitive dissonance can kill people. And I've experienced that to a certain degree myself with different things. It took me 3 years to really accept what was going on with the pedophile rings. I didn't want to accept it to the extent that it was. And so, as people heal, they can slowly, but, finding a group of friends, or at least one friend that you can talk to that has been awake and aware of a lot of things going on can really help. And then slowly, incrementally, if it gets too crazy and things start, getting too chaotic, take a step back, digest the information that you've received, do a bit more research if you have to, because sometimes it's like, well, no, I'm not just going to believe that. And people shouldn't just believe what you're saying.
no, of
People need
course.
to go and do the
They need
research
to
and
see
get,
and learn for themselves.
exactly. And then that really helps as people do that, they can digest the information more,
But
right?
Jessica, you sound like me in 2010, and we're not in 2010 anymore. We don't have the time to take the slow,
It's
lackadaisical
the only
route.
way.
We're
It's the only
literally
way.
at the crescendo of the war. They're rolling out killer robots and AI next year. Next year. Not 20 freaking years from now. Next year.
Yeah, this also happened like, a few thousand years ago and a few thousand years before that. We've been repeating history, in my opinion, over
And
and
we've
over.
been wiped out. You're right. And we
You
got
know?
completely, utterly wiped out.
Yeah.
And then they
So I'm just
reseeded us. There's
praying
so
that we're
many
going to
reasons.
do it right this time, right? But, like you said, from the looks of it, it's, people aren't going to wake up overnight, right? There's always a chance, but, you know, I think each time, each iteration, each time we spiral up on this time, throughout history, whether it's us in this body or incarnated into another body, we're up leveling. And I think we're eventually going to get there. But, I don't think people are going to get there overnight. And actually, they resist more. The more harder you go at people with information, the more resistance they build up in their own minds to accept it. So it's kind of a tricky process, we got to get psychological. So in this video, we might not hit home with someone who's just waking up, but, with people who are kind of on the path already, they'll have that trail led to your work and, to think deeper on these topics and to hopefully come up with solutions themselves. Because we all need to find solutions. And I'm still working on getting rid of my cell phone. So I'm not, I'm part of that. I'm still part of the problem and I can help myself a bit more than I have. But I am working on all these different, levels and layers. And
No, it's
uh,
become necessary for a lot of people to be employed, and I get it. Yeah, response. It's not like I don't understand. I do. But people on one side say, what are solutions? Then they say, I'm not willing to do any of those solutions. So what they're really asking is, are there any easy solutions where I don't have to inconvenience myself or actually do anything and everything's going to be okay? Those don't exist. They don't exist. So all of the solutions that we can stop this involve courage, involve stopping the people doing it, and involve inconveniencing your life in every way. Your safety, your security, your money, your mind, your spirit, your soul, everything will be inconvenienced. That will be the solution. But if you're not willing to give absolutely everything to fix it, we're going to absolutely lose. Absolutely all of us. So
Yeah,
pick.
I agree. I just want to show people actually before we jump off quickly, I had brought up this video here, on Danny Jones. He interviews Max LeBeau. This is a really great introductory video for people that are just waking up to get, it's storytelling that really helps, bring people closer to that moment, that pivotal moment of like grasping what's going on, right? And this guy tells his story. Um, in a way that might help some of our audience. So I just wanted to bring it up. I had posted it up before getting on with you.
No, that's
And
very important. And I don't claim to be like a level one teacher. I'm not a level one teacher. I'm like the second to last teacher.
yeah,
So
that's it. You
there's
go
probably a
really
lot
in
of
depth.
teachers you need to go through to get to my class. But my
Yeah,
class is
exactly.
gonna hit you hard, and then there'll be one final class from another teacher, but it ain't me. Then you'll be able to walk on water. I'll just get you pissed off in my class.
Yeah, yeah, but that's it. We need that divine masculine, influence. It's been really helpful for me at different times. So this is Ryan's website, and you can just, over here you have all these videos, and then you also have a list somewhere of different podcasts and he does consultations, private consultations, business consultations, and for special projects. Um, and then the alien. So this is, do you want to just drop a few words on, I guess, some of the things that you do in the conference in LA?
Yeah, I speak on AI and a lot of esoteric matters, health matters, functional mushrooms. I do cover solutions as well, but the problem is that a lot of the solutions, like exit and build, is wonderful. Cultivate, elevate, wonderful. The problem is that even if we escape the smart cities, they're just going to beam us with dews and hit us with energy weapons and poison us with dioxins or so there's no dancing around the fact that the people doing it have to be stopped cold. That's it. That's the solution. Stop the people doing it. And it's funny because I used this analogy in one of those talks in Vegas. And I said, people are asking, how do I dodge arrows? And they keep asking me, Ryan, how do I dodge the arrows? You kill the archer. Stop the archer from firing the arrows at your village and your people and killing you all, and you will stop having to learn to dodge arrows. But
Hmm.
you can't dodge arrows forever. So if we have all these solutions to exist outside the system, this is not a system that accepts any competition. It's the beast. It's run by
Hmm.
demons. It's
Hmm.
not going to allow you to exist outside of it. So all these people, yes, I have tons of solutions. If we can just get rid of these archers, we have
Hmm.
all the solutions to health, free energy, golden age,
Hmm.
beauty, that you have no idea how perfect this world can be, how wonderful humanity can be, and the types of lives and the pleasure, joy, and fulfillment we can feel. You have no idea.
Yeah.
Equal as you do not understand what we're facing in this abyss, this
So
abyss.
it's like, yeah, it's like you said at the beginning, the government that we have in power is really dependent on the people's state of mind and where they're at. And so everybody kind of waking up to, different information and going through the trials and tribulations that brings, stay courageous, stay strong, and we'll eventually get there if we can have like that majority tipping point, in the right space of, in the right place in their hearts
Yeah,
and
it'll either be in the next 12 months or the next 12,000 years. So it's up to you.
thank you so much, Ryan. I
You're
really,
very
really
welcome.
appreciate your work and everything you contribute. And bon courage. Don't give up. Stay in your heart courage,
I
and
don't
you'll
have the
eventually.
luxury of giving up, and thank you. And I'm sorry to be sometimes a dark teacher on these matters, but that's the reality.
We
So
all have
people
our
have to hear
medicine.
it. They have to. I'm not. I don't sugarcoat it. I just have to tell you what's going on. And if I don't, then I will have answer and to do when I meet my maker. So I operate from a place of what am I going to do and say and be to be proud before my creator, and that's who you're talking to right now. So I'm sorry I can't make it prettier or nicer or sell you some bullshit and tell you that it's all going to be okay. It's most definitely not going to be okay.
No,
Not
that's beautiful words. We all have our medicine and our purpose, and as long as we're living in that, I think that's what matters most. So thank you for your medicine and yeah, sharing your purpose.
thank you.
Okay, take care.